Welcome back to ABC General Hospital Spoilers channel. Today, we will learn about the explosive confrontation brewing between Sonny Corinthos and the dangerous Jen Sidwell that promises to shake Port Charles to its core. The deadly game of cat and mouse has officially begun, and viewers are in for an unforgettable showdown that will determine who truly controls the criminal underworld of this coastal town. Sidwell's dangerous blackmail scheme. Jen Sidwell has positioned himself as a formidable adversary by acquiring devastating blackmail material that threatens both Sonny Corinthos and Mayor Laura Collins. The evidence in Sidwell's possession includes incriminating photographs that capture moments neither Sonny nor Laura want exposed to the authorities or the public eye. More critically, Sidwell has secured the murder weapon, a gun bearing Laura's DNA that connects her directly to the death of Professor Henry Hank Dalton. This elaborate frame-up has been meticulously orchestrated by Sidwell, who believes he's constructed an airtight case that will keep Port Charles's most powerful figures under his control indefinitely. The villain's confidence stems from his belief that he's anticipated every possible countermove. Sidwell has carefully documented the entire situation, ensuring that any attempt to deny involvement or shift blame will crumble under the weight of physical evidence. The photographs alone could destroy Laura's political career and land her behind bars, while Sonny faces potential conspiracy charges that could finally bring down his criminal empire. Sidwell's plan represents years of careful observation and strategic planning, making him perhaps the most calculated enemy Sonny has faced in recent memory. However, Sidwell may have underestimated the combined force of Sonny's street-smart cunning and Laura's political acumen. These two powerful figures have survived countless threats over the years, and their combined determination to escape Sidwell's trap could prove to be his ultimate downfall. The blackmailer has crossed a line that few dare to approach, threatening not just Sonny's business interests, but his fundamental sense of control over his own destiny. Sonny's refusal to submit. For someone like Sonny Corinthos, being controlled by another person represents an intolerable situation that goes against everything he's built throughout his career. Sonny has spent decades establishing himself as the undisputed power broker in Port Charles, commanding respect and fear in equal measure from allies and enemies alike. The very foundation of his reputation rests on his ability to maintain control even in the most chaotic situations. Having Sidwell dictate terms and hold leverage over him fundamentally threatens Sonny's identity and position within the criminal hierarchy. During their recent phone conversation, Sonny assured Laura that they would figure it out, but those simple words carry tremendous weight coming from someone with Sonny's resources and determination. His promise wasn't merely empty reassurance, it was a declaration of war wrapped in calm words. Sonny has navigated through countless dangerous situations, outmaneuvered federal prosecutors, survived assassination attempts, and outlasted rival mob families. A newcomer like Sidwell, regardless of how clever he thinks he is, represents just another obstacle to overcome in Sonny's long and bloody career. The mobster's mind is already working through multiple scenarios and contingency plans. Sonny understands that immediate action could be reckless, but calculated patience combined with decisive strikes at the right moment has always been his trademark strategy. He's analyzing Sidwell's operation, identifying weaknesses, and preparing to exploit every vulnerability in the blackmailer's armor. Sonny knows that men like Sidwell often become overconfident when they believe they hold all the advantages, and that overconfidence creates openings for someone experienced in turning the tables. Strategic meeting between Sonny and Laura. The upcoming face-to-face meeting between Sonny and Laura will mark a crucial turning point in their battle against Sidwell. While phone conversations serve their initial purpose, this situation demands the security and clarity that only an in-person discussion can provide. Both understand that electronic communications could be monitored or intercepted, and the stakes are far too high to risk any additional exposure. Their meeting will take place at a secure location where they can speak freely without fear of surveillance or interruption. Laura will express genuine remorse for inadvertently pulling Sonny into this dangerous situation. As mayor, She's tried to maintain appropriate distance from Sonny's criminal activities while privately acknowledging their complex relationship and shared history. Now her predicament has forced her to rely on exactly the kind of assistance she's publicly denounced, creating both practical complications and ethical dilemmas. The guilt weighs heavily on Laura, who prides herself on solving problems through legitimate channels rather than resorting to mob justice. However, Sonny will firmly redirect any misplaced guilt, making it clear that Sidwell bears sole responsibility for this crisis. He'll remind Laura that she didn't create this situation. She became a target of Sidwell's ruthless ambitions just as Sonny did. The villain chose to manufacture false evidence and construct elaborate frame-ups rather than operating through legitimate means. Sidwell's actions represent calculated criminal behavior, not unavoidable circumstances, and Sonny will ensure Laura understands that distinction clearly. The plan to destroy evidence. Sonny's strategic mind will quickly identify the core vulnerability in Sidwell's scheme, the physical evidence itself. While the blackmailer believes his documentation makes him invincible, Sonny recognizes that destroying all proof would instantly eliminate Sidwell's leverage and restore their freedom of action. Without the incriminating photographs and the gun bearing Laura's DNA, Sidwell transforms from dangerous puppet master into toothless pretender, making unsubstantiated accusations that no one can verify. The challenge lies in locating and eliminating every piece of evidence Sidwell has compiled. Sonny will likely deploy his most trusted operatives to conduct surveillance on Sidwell's movements, identify his storage locations, and map out his security measures. Jason Morgan's investigative skills and Damian Spinelli's technical expertise could prove invaluable in tracking down digital copies of photographs and determining where Sidwell keeps the physical evidence. Every detail matters because leaving even one photograph or copy of documentation intact would allow Sidwell to maintain his blackmail operation. Interestingly, soap opera villains often make the critical mistake of keeping all their evidence in a single location rather than maintaining multiple backups in geographically separated areas. Recent storylines have demonstrated this pattern, such as when Drew Kane's own blackmail material was compromised because he failed to implement proper redundancy in his evidence storage. Sidwell may have fallen into the same trap, concentrating his power in one vault or safe deposit box that could be compromised through careful planning and execution. If Sonny's team can identify and raid that single point of failure, they'll effectively neutralize the entire threat in one decisive operation. Sidwell's fatal mistake. By escalating his blackmail scheme to include both the murder weapon and photographic evidence, Sidwell has unwittingly signed his own death warrant. Earlier in this conflict, Sonny considered assassination a last resort option, preferring to explore less extreme solutions that wouldn't attract unwanted attention from law enforcement. However, Sidwell's aggressive tactics and absolute disregard for boundaries have transformed him from nuisance into existential threat, exactly the type of enemy that Sonny eliminates permanently. While Sonny may not explicitly announce his intention to kill Sidwell during his meeting with Laura, his determination to resolve the situation permanently speaks volumes about his true plans. In Sonny's world, certain transgressions cannot be forgiven or forgotten. Once someone crosses specific lines threatening family, attempting to destroy his empire, or holding unacceptable leverage over him, they become marked for elimination. Sidwell has committed all three offenses simultaneously, ensuring his fate was sealed the moment he unveiled his blackmail scheme. The timeline for Sidwell's demise remains uncertain, as Sonny prefers to strike when his enemy least expects retaliation. Rushing into violence could create complications with law enforcement or expose Sonny to additional risks. Instead, he'll likely wait until the evidence has been secured or destroyed, ensuring that Sidwell's death won't automatically trigger the release of backup materials held by associates or lawyers. Only when Sonny has complete confidence in the security of his position will he authorize the final strike against Sidwell. Potential complications and escalation. Despite Sonny's careful planning and Laura's political resources, numerous complications could emerge that transform this already dangerous situation into something far more chaotic and destructive. Sidwell may have partners or associates that Sonny hasn't identified yet, individuals who could step in to continue the blackmail operation if anything happens to Sidwell. Criminal organizations rarely operate as true one-man shows, and Sidwell's confidence suggests he has support structures in place that extend beyond his personal capabilities. Additionally, law enforcement could stumble onto evidence of the frame-up or Sonny's counter-operations at any moment. Port Charles Police Department may be largely ineffective, but even incompetent investigators occasionally get lucky. If detectives discover the murder weapon or photographs before Sonny's team can secure them, the situation escalates dramatically. Laura could face immediate arrest, and Sonny would need to pivot to legal defense strategies rather than covert operations. The potential for public exposure threatens both of their positions and could trigger a cascade of consequences affecting numerous other Port Charles residents. Anna Devane's WSB connections represent another wild card factor. If international intelligence agencies become interested in Sidwell or his operations, they could inadvertently interfere with Sonny's plans while pursuing their own objectives. The intersection of mob justice, political intrigue, and international espionage creates a volatile mixture where unexpected explosions become increasingly likely. Each additional party that learns about this situation multiplies the complexity and reduces Sonny's control over the final outcome. Sonny's promise and determination. Regardless of obstacles or complications, Sonny will make a solemn promise to Laura that their subjugation under Sidwell will be temporary. This isn't merely bravado or empty reassurance, it's a binding commitment backed by Sonny's entire reputation and resources. When Sonny Corinthos gives his word, particularly to someone he respects like Laura, he moves heaven and earth to fulfill that promise. His personal code demands nothing less than complete follow-through on commitments made to allies and friends. Laura can take genuine comfort in Sonny's determination because his track record speaks for itself. He's outmaneuvered federal prosecutors who seem to have airtight cases against him. He's survived wars with rival families that left dozens dead and restructured Port Charles's criminal landscape. He's protected his family from threats that would have destroyed lesser men. If Sonny has decided that Sidwell's reign of terror will end, then viewers can be absolutely certain that Sidwell's days are numbered. The only question remaining is how spectacular his downfall will be and how many others get caught in the crossfire when Sonny makes his decisive move. The coming weeks promise explosive confrontations, shocking revelations, and the ultimate demonstration of why Sonny Corinthos remains the undisputed king of Port Charles. Sidwell may have won the opening rounds of this battle, but he's about to learn that defeating Sonny requires more than clever planning and blackmail material. It requires the kind of ruthlessness, experience, and strategic brilliance that only comes from decades of survival in the criminal underworld. General Hospital spoilers indicate that this storyline will fundamentally reshape the power dynamics in Port Charles and remind everyone why crossing Sonny Corinthos is a fatal mistake. Next, we will learn about the explosive developments surrounding Jen Sidwell's dangerous blackmail scheme that threatens to destroy both Laura Spencer and Sonny Corinthos, along with the brewing alliance that may finally put an end to Port Charles's newest criminal mastermind, Sidwell's deadly leverage. The tension in Port Charles has reached unprecedented heights as Jen Sidwell has emerged wielding devastating evidence capable of dismantling the lives of two of the town's most influential figures, armed with incriminating photographs that link Laura Spencer and Sonny Corinthos to the mysterious death of Henry Dalton. Sidwell has positioned himself as the puppet master pulling strings that could send both Laura and Sonny to prison for decades. The photographs tell a damning story, one that shows Laura and Sonny in compromising positions with Dalton's deceased body, creating an ironclad case that would be nearly impossible to defend in any courtroom. What makes this situation particularly treacherous is Sidwell's calculated approach to exploitation. He isn't simply demanding money or territory like most criminals would. Instead, he's seeking complete control over Port Charles's political infrastructure, using Laura's position as mayor as his gateway to legitimate power. This strategic thinking reveals Sidwell as a far more sophisticated threat than the typical mob adversary Sonny has faced throughout his lengthy career in organized crime. The blackmail scheme began when Henry Dalton's body mysteriously appeared in Laura's trunk, a development that immediately sent shockwaves through the Spencer household. From the moment this grisly discovery was made, astute viewers anticipated that significant trouble was brewing on the horizon. The body's appearance wasn't random or coincidental. It was a carefully orchestrated setup designed to ensnare Laura in a web of criminal liability from which escape would prove nearly impossible. The confrontation at Laura's home. The nightmare scenario materialized into reality when Jen Sidwell boldly entered Laura's apartment during a particularly vulnerable moment. Kevin Collins, Laura's devoted husband, was preoccupied with attending to a patient, leaving Laura alone when Sidwell made his dramatic entrance. The villain's timing was impeccable, demonstrating his thorough surveillance of the Spencer household and his understanding of when Laura would be most defenseless. Sidwell wasted no time in revealing his hand, producing a damning photograph that captured Laura staring down at Henry Dalton's lifeless body in her trunk. The image was clear, undeniable, and professionally captured. Laura's initial defensive strategy was to suggest the photograph could be digitally manipulated or photoshopped, a reasonable argument in today's era of sophisticated image editing technology. However, her hopes for a credible defense crumbled instantly when Sidwell produced a second photograph that was even more devastating than the first. This secondary image featured both Laura and Sonny together with Dalton's corpse, arranged in what Sidwell mockingly described as resembling a grotesque selfie. The composition of this photograph eliminated any possibility of claiming digital fabrication, as it showed both subjects clearly aware of the camera's presence. Sidwell's mockery reached cruel heights when he sarcastically thanked Laura for involving Sonny Corinthos in the situation, claiming that having Port Charles's infamous mob boss implicated in the evidence was an unexpected gift that made his blackmail scheme exponentially more valuable. Sidwell's outrageous demands. With his leverage firmly established, Sidwell proceeded to outline his demands with chilling precision. He made abundantly clear that Laura must obey every instruction he provides without question or hesitation. The terms of his blackmail are straightforward, yet utterly controlling. Complete compliance ensures that the Port Charles Police Department never receives copies of the incriminating photographs, which means both Laura and Sonny can continue living their lives as free citizens rather than spending their remaining years behind bars. The situation escalated further with the arrival of Ezra Boyle, Sidwell's chosen liaison who would serve as the intermediary between the blackmailer and his victim. Laura, desperately searching for any escape route from this nightmare, offered what she believed might be an acceptable compromise. She would resign from her position as mayor of Port Charles and allow Ezra Boyle to assume control of the office. In Laura's calculation, stepping down from her political position would satisfy Sidwell's apparent desire for influence over Port Charles's governance. However, Sidwell immediately rejected this proposal, revealing the true sophistication of his long-term strategy. He explained that Port Charles voters overwhelmingly prefer Laura over Ezra Boyle, making her continued presence in the mayor's office essential to his plans. Sidwell doesn't want a puppet mayor that citizens distrust or resist. He wants Laura's legitimacy, her popularity, and her political capital working to advance his criminal agenda while maintaining the appearance of legitimate government. This approach would allow Sidwell to operate with unprecedented freedom, using mayoral authority to facilitate his illegal enterprises while Laura's respected reputation provides cover for his activities. The threat against Ace Casadini. Just when the situation seemed impossibly dire, circumstances deteriorated even further. Little Ace Casadini, Laura's adopted child, who is also her grandchild through complicated family connections, began crying in another room during Sidwell's threatening visit. The child's innocent cry drew Sidwell's immediate attention, and his villainous mind instantly recognized a new pressure point he could exploit against Laura. Sidwell's declaration that everyone has a price, and now I know you're sent ice through Laura's veins. The realization that this dangerous criminal had now targeted her vulnerable grandchild transformed Laura's fear into something far more primal and desperate. After Sidwell and Ezra Boyle finally departed from her apartment, Laura was left sobbing uncontrollably, overwhelmed by the impossible situation she faces. She understands with absolute clarity that she has no choice but to comply with Sidwell's demands, particularly now that Ace has been specifically identified as leverage against her cooperation. Laura's protective instincts extend beyond just Ace to also encompass Sonny Corinthos, despite their complicated history and his criminal lifestyle. She recognizes that Sonny, while certainly capable of protecting himself in most circumstances, is equally vulnerable to Sidwell's photographic evidence. Laura confided the entire situation to Kevin when he returned home, explaining Sidwell's demands and the impossible position in which she's been placed. Sidwell confronts Sonny directly. Before Laura could arrange a meeting to warn Sonny about the blackmail scheme and discuss potential strategies, Sidwell preemptively struck again by visiting Sonny directly at his residence. This bold move demonstrated Sidwell's confidence and his complete lack of fear regarding Sonny's reputation as Port Charles's most dangerous mob boss. By the week's end, Sidwell was standing in Sonny's home, calmly explaining that he possesses sufficient evidence to destroy both Sonny and Laura completely. The confrontation represents a significant turning point in Sidwell's campaign of terror. Rather than working exclusively through Laura, Sidwell has chosen to directly engage with Sonny, making it clear that he views the infamous mob boss as merely another obstacle to be controlled through blackmail rather than an adversary to be feared. This demonstration of audacity reveals either supreme confidence in his position or dangerous overconfidence that could prove to be his downfall. The diplomatic approach fails. Recent episodes have shown Sonny attempting to pursue a more diplomatic approach with Jen Sidwell, consciously working to avoid another bloody mob war that would inevitably stain Port Charles streets with violence and death. Sonny has matured considerably over his decades as a mob boss, learning that sometimes negotiation and strategic patience accomplish more than immediate violent retaliation. However, Sidwell's escalating threats and his brazen blackmail scheme have effectively eliminated diplomacy as a viable option. Strong evidence suggests that Sidwell orchestrated the devastating penthouse explosion that endangered multiple lives, including Sonny's loved ones. This revelation has been building gradually through various clues and testimonies, painting Sidwell as the mastermind behind an attack that could have killed innocent people. While Sonny generally operates according to a code that includes protecting civilians and avoiding unnecessary bloodshed, Sidwell represents a fundamentally different type of criminal who shows no regard for collateral damage or innocent lives. The stark contrast between these two mob figures couldn't be more pronounced. Sonny, despite his criminal activities, maintains certain ethical boundaries and demonstrates loyalty to Port Charles as his home territory. Sidwell, conversely, is a ruthless operator willing to destroy anyone and everyone to achieve his objectives. This fundamental incompatibility, combined with Sidwell's direct threats against Laura and implicit threats against Ace, has created a situation where elimination rather than negotiation appears to be the only viable solution. The Lansing brothers unite. The brewing conflict with Sidwell may catalyze an unprecedented alliance as Sonny considers enlisting his brother Rick Lansing to assist in confronting this existential threat. Alternatively, Sonny might confide in Rick about the blackmail situation affecting both himself and Laura, leading Rick to volunteer his unique skills and legal expertise in developing a strategy against Sidwell. Currently, the relationship between Sonny and Rick has reached its healthiest point in many years, with both brothers having reconciled their differences and established genuine mutual respect. This positive dynamic represents a remarkable transformation given their historically contentious relationship. Despite being biological half-brothers who share blood ties through their mother Adela Corinthos, Sonny and Rick spent many years as bitter adversaries, their relationship poisoned by jealousy, resentment, and competing ambitions. The fact that they've managed to overcome these deep-seated conflicts and forge a genuine brotherly bond represents significant character growth for both men. Actor Rick Hurst has publicly expressed his enthusiasm about this evolution in Rick and Sonny's relationship. He particularly appreciated the emotionally resonant scene where Rick tells Sonny that their newfound closeness and cooperation represents exactly what their beloved mother Adela would have wanted for her sons. This reference to their shared maternal connection provided powerful motivation for both characters to maintain their alliance and honor their mother's memory through brotherhood rather than rivalry. Given this strength and bond, it's entirely plausible that Sonny would trust Rick enough to involve him in the dangerous plan to neutralize Sidwell's threat. Rick, upon learning the full extent of Sidwell's blackmail operation and his threats against Laura and potentially Ace, would almost certainly agree to participate despite the inherent dangers. While Rick may lack Sonny's combat experience and street fighting capabilities, he brings complementary skills that could prove invaluable in this conflict, particularly his legal expertise and strategic thinking that excels in courtroom battles and complex problem solving. Jason Morgan joins the fight. Inevitably, Jason Morgan will contribute his formidable skills to this anti-Sidwell coalition. However, Jason currently faces significant personal distractions related to Britt Westburn and her mysteriously deteriorating health condition. Jason experiences genuine shock this week when Britt suddenly collapses, raising alarming questions about what medical crisis she's experiencing and whether her previously diagnosed Huntington's disease is progressing more rapidly than anticipated. Despite Jason's historical closeness with Sonny, which transcends typical professional relationships to resemble genuine brotherhood, the addition of Rick Lansing to any operational team creates potential complications. Jason and Rick have never established positive rapport or mutual respect throughout their many years of crossing paths in Port Charles. Rick perpetually harbored deep jealousy regarding the bond between Jason and Sonny, recognizing that their relationship exhibited far more authentic brotherly connection than his own biological relationship with Sonny ever achieved during their years of conflict. This underlying tension between Jason and Rick could create challenging dynamics if they're forced to work together against Sidwell. However, the severity of the threat Sidwell represents may necessitate that both men put aside their personal animosity and focus on the greater objective of protecting Sonny, Laura, and by extension, all of Port Charles from this dangerous criminal schemes. The combination of Sonny's strategic criminal expertise, Rick's legal knowledge and analytical thinking, and Jason's unmatched combat skills and loyalty could create a formidable team capable of dismantling Sidwell's operation permanently. The coming weeks promise explosive confrontations as these various storylines converge toward an inevitable climax. Will the alliance between Sonny, Rick, and Jason prove strong enough to overcome their personal differences and defeat Sidwell? Can Laura find a way to protect Ace while navigating Sidwell's impossible demands? The answers to these questions will determine the future of Port Charles and its residents.